The problem is that the heart can be kind of dense sometimes. Have you ever found that to be true? The heart can be kind of dense sometimes. And so, have you ever known somebody that had to be told over and over and over again before they actually got it? And no, ladies, I'm not talking about your husband. We're all like that. All us husbands are like that. So, but that's not who I'm talking about. But anyway, the problem with the heart is it can be kind of dense. And so it has to be told over and over again. They need to be told over and over again before they start to actually warm up to the truth. So if you've ever said that, my head knows this, but my heart doesn't know it, it's just because your heart has not been told the truth enough. And who's the one who's supposed to do the telling? Your head. You're supposed to tell yourself the truth. So this is not the same thing as just simply positive thinking. Several decades ago, there was a book came out, The Power of Positive Thinking, and I hope that you do not use that as like a second Bible, because there's a lot of problems in that book. But let me just tell you the difference between positive thinking and what I'm talking about. Positive thinking is trying to make something happen because you want it to happen. But this is believing in order to have God's truth. You believe it and you tell yourself this over and over again because God says so. And so there's a big difference there. That's what this word consider is all about. You're telling yourself the truth. You're counting it to be so. You are, in the King James, it says reckon, and that just means to write it down, to believe it, to count it as being true. And so you over and over again, at the beginning of the day, you start off and say, I know that my old self is crucified with Christ. I've died to sin. It does not have power over me. I do not have to serve it. And the more your heart hears it, the more it's going to believe it. All right, so then that leads us to the third word, and it's going to be found in verse 13. But before we read that, let's look at verse 12, which is kind of a summary of what the chapter said so far. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey its lusts. Since you have died to sin, since your old self has been crucified with Christ, the only way that sin can dominate you is if you allow it. Don't allow it. The third word. Verse 13 says, do not go on presenting the members of your body to sin as instruments of unrighteousness, but present yourselves to God as those alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to God. Now notice here the emphasis on the physical body. There is a big and very important reason for that. The picture is, do not present your physical body to sin, to obey its lust, but present your physical body to God to be used of Him for acts of righteousness. Or to be specific, presenting your body, which is what it means by your members, the members of your body, as instruments of righteousness. So this is not just something that you stop doing, but it's something that you start doing. So it's an emphasis on the physical body. Now, why would Paul do that? Doesn't Paul know that you can sin with your mind as well as with your physical body? Well, he's actually drawing out an important truth that we don't always think about. All right? So he's saying that when we present our bodies to sin, then that is the problem, but we need to learn instead to present our bodies to righteousness. So the third word is present, or in the King James, yield. So bring your physical body to God and present it to Him to do His bidding. Now I'm going to give you an example of this. I know this is probably not clear yet, but in Ephesians 4, he has just been talking about laying aside the old self and putting on the new self. You don't just put off the old self, you put on the new. You don't just stop sinning, you replace it with something else. You reroute the river. Why do I use that expression? Well, when construction crews and engineers are going to build a dam, what's the first thing they do? They reroute the river. That's right, they reroute the river. because it would be impossible to just start pouring concrete in the middle of a fast-flowing river and expect it to stay there and to be able to build up. So you have to reroute the river, and then in the place where the river did go, then they start and they build the dam, and then when they're all finished, then they route the river back to where it was, only the dam's there this time, and it begins to hold the water. So that concept is something that I think is strong here in Romans 6 and Ephesians 4 and so forth. So in verse 25 of Ephesians 4, it says, therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. In other words, you don't speak lies, you do speak truth. He's not just saying stop lying, he's also saying start telling truth. It is a positive that negates the negative. You don't just say, I am not going to lie today, I'm not going to lie today, I'm not going to lie today, but you also say, I'm going to speak truth today. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to speak truth. And in every situation that I come into, everything that I need to, in conversations or even with myself or with God, I'm going to speak what is true. And in so doing, what you've done is you have rerouted the river, and you are so busy speaking truth that you don't have time to tell lies. That's just kind of a bit of an illustration. Let's look at another one. This is verse 26 and 27. Be angry and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. So rather than let anger fester inside of you, you deal with it quickly. That's what it means about not letting the sun go down on your anger. You deal with it quickly, because a bitter mind is the devil's playground. So you forgive. The positive thing is to deal with it, to forgive, and you replace the negative thing, which is bitterness. So not only are you going to not do this, but you are going to do this. Okay? Here's another one, verse 28. He who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with one who has need. So instead of presenting your hands to stealing, you give your hands something else to do. You know, the old 5-finger discount? You're going to do something a little differently than that now. You present your hands to honest work. Instead of taking what does not belong to you, you give what does belong to you. You see, you're replacing the negative with something that's positive. Instead of just trying to stop something, you're going to do something else instead. Now, I want you to think about this for just a minute, and I'm not going to go into much detail of this, but I know that most people have at least a few things that trouble you, temptations that trouble you, or things that just kind of keep cropping up in your life over and over again. And you just think, man, I want to quit that. I want to stop that. But are you thinking of what you can do instead of doing that thing? Something good, something positive, that when that comes up, instead of that, I'm going to do this. See, that's kind of what the concept is about this. You're knowing you're free from sin. You're considering yourself to be dead to sin, and then you're presenting yourself to God as an instrument of righteousness. In other words, you are going to do good things, and that's going to help you to not do bad things.